Hey everybody, how you doing? Tony Penn here with Results-Driven Leadership. Today we're going to be talking about inspirational leadership and how to be inspiring. I think there's a real misconception out there that being inspirational requires a very high energy, loud, boisterous, super articulate individual to stand in front of a group and communicate what needs to happen within the organization. And there really isn't anything farther from the truth. I mean, you can have that and you can have that ability, but that isn't going to be a sustainable, results-driven process. The results are going to come from a long-term understanding of what the expectations are and how that information is presented, communicated, followed up on, and celebrated. And that's what our goal is, to kind of talk a little bit about that, because anybody can be inspiring if they have certain skill sets and certain characteristics that don't necessarily require someone to be loud and boisterous. Conversely, though, I would tell you that being inspirational is important because people are generally following leadership with regard to setting a particular tone. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the session. But I think they did a survey, salary.com or somebody, and interviewed employees, and the vast majority, like up to 70%, were just not inspired by their leadership. And I think there's even a higher percentage of people that just never felt really engaged in the process. So I think that's something we want to talk about today as well. It happens all the time where we think as leaders, we think we're inspiring. And so we're very optimistic about the message that we're communicating and the information and the process. And we get a lot of feedback that generally, from employees, that generally makes us feel pretty good about ourselves. But a lot of times, and I'm sure we've all experienced, anybody in leadership leadership position has experienced it, that, people will a lot of times say what you want to hear. And they'll shake their head a lot, and they'll be like, thumbs up, man, you're the one, you're the man, you're the woman. But really, they're not really engaged to the level that you think they are, and you're probably not as inspiring as you think you are. And so I think it's important to understand what those characteristics look like, because it's all about results. And that's you hear us say that all the time here at Results-Driven Leadership. We named our company based on the fact that we understand that there is sometimes a large gap between, the systems and processes and information we put in place and the results that we achieve. So that's our goal, is to kind of figure out how to be inspiring that's going to lead to the results. And I've experienced a lot of different types of inspirational leaders in my day. And some of them are super quiet and you don't really hear much from them. Some of them are very loud. Some are great coaches. But and teachers. And one thing that they have in common is that they get stuff done. They're not preachers. That may be part of their process, but they're doers. And they get the job done. And that's one thing that people look at to be inspired, someone that can accomplish tasks and accomplish goals. Resilience is another big one, because, I come from the restaurant industry. I've run a lot of large restaurant companies and small restaurant and individual restaurants. And one of the things that I've really found is that resiliency is extremely inspirational, because you get knocked on your rear end quite often in our business, as you do in most businesses. And the ability to get back up and start swinging the next day, people look at that and they are inspired by that. And so we're going to try to accomplish, you know, the whole idea of finding ways to be inspiring. What are different ways? And we kind of broke it down into 7 secrets. And we'll talk about those in a second. Before we do that, though, you know, try to think a little bit about, well, you know, who has inspired you in the past. And it's not always going to be somebody at work. Sometimes it's people that you know, in your life, friends, family, parents, kids, whatever the case may be. But trying to break down what you think made them inspiring. A lot of times we're inspired, but we don't really know why we're inspired. So now is a good time to start thinking about that sort of thing. Here's some examples of those. And I can tell you, for me personally, you know, when there was a CEO I had for a particular company when I was coming through the ranks, and he was very inspiring, but he didn't have all of these. He was very self-reliant. He was responsible and took action, which was, I think, one of the things that made him successful. He was relatively proactive. He wasn't a good coach. He didn't pull you aside and go, come here, man, let's work on these things. Let me show you a few things. That was not his forte, as they say. He wasn't very fair either. But he was a great communicator. If you just look at the ones on here, he wasn't very adaptable. He was very optimistic, and he was 100% authentic. And I think the fact that he communicated it, he was really good at understanding what the goals were and what needed to happen and what initiative it would take. He was great at communicating those goals. He was super optimistic that you could get it done. And he was his true self. Whereas you look at other people that we've had where you know, I had a coach in high school. He was a baseball coach, and he was just a good teacher, and he taught, and he was a great teacher, not only that at the skills of baseball, but he was a great teacher with regard to what you needed to be successful in life. And the thing that made him great at that was that he was able to make that human connection. He was able to speak at a level that you could understand. He was very patient, which you would have to be dealing with me. And he came up with some great ideas. And so leadership, inspiration comes in all shapes and sizes. But think about those things that have inspired you in your past. So let's get down to the 7 secrets of an inspiring leader. And number 1 is really personal authenticity. Knowing exactly who you are so that your message is sincere and it's clear. And it's very difficult to assess when you don't really know somebody. So like if you become a leader of a group and you have new employees come in, they don't know who you are. But most people are pretty sharp, you know, they're pretty smart when it comes to reading through bullshit, you know, and I can't stress it enough, because it allows you to make mistakes. It allows you to show your vulnerability, which in turn creates inspiration, and it creates a feeling of trust when the leaders are honest about who they are and what they're doing. And people want to, you know, they want to be clear on who you are, and they want to be clear on what they need in order to be successful. It's not really about how inspirational you sound. It's really not about even your title. The title can leverage to get things done sometimes, but it's about utilizing that position and the knowledge to help people. That's what, you know, that's what title is. And so keep in mind that It's not easy to do. None of what we're talking about is easy. But it's extremely critical that you understand what your strengths are, and your leadership approach is built around those strengths, whether it's coaching, teaching, speaking, as long as we get to secret 2, is you have a strong sense of what the goals are and what the values of that organization should be. We talked about clarity. I mean, clarity is the key to all of this, because the goals and expectations that you have within your organization have to be communicated effectively, because they can be, again, clear in your mind, but if you're not communicating them effectively and you're not getting people to understand, then people are going to check out, or they may get bits and pieces of it. But I can tell you this from personal experience, it slows down the process of getting results. So make sure everybody is on board, make sure everybody understands what the goals are, and make sure that your teams are aligned to those goals. And alignment is really everybody understanding what we're trying to accomplish and what role do we all play in the process. And one of the things that's, happened in my career is a lot of confusion about what the effort looks like, and not enough focus on what the results look like. I came from a world in the restaurant industry where I was opening a restaurant in Brooklyn, and we were scheduled, I was assistant manager, like an entry-level manager. And we were scheduled, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. That was our schedule. And when you left after 12 hours, everybody looked at you like it was a half day. But what ended up happening was everybody was getting burnt out. Nobody had any energy at all to do a job that needed a lot of energy, especially in that location. That was tough. And so it wasn't really looked at as results. It was looked at as it was a standard within the industry that you always have to work to kill yourself. And that was a measure of the quality of employee you were. And what I learned from that was that there's nothing that can be farther from the truth. It's all about results, and it should all be about how do I go about creating an environment where I can get people to work together with a common goal that's easily articulated, understood, that we all work together to achieve, and do it without killing ourselves, so that we can kind of spend more time doing things that we enjoy doing, or spending times with our family, or the work-life balance. So I want to stress that, because it is an issue. And I know people have heard that phrase before, confusing effort with results, but I'm telling you, it happens all the time. People are always, a lot of times, are looking at how hard you're working. And finally, the inspirational, no matter what you're doing, what the process looks like, what the goals are, celebration, man. People want to celebrate. I mean, they want any excuse to celebrate. And people are inspired by those that want to celebrate accomplishments. So don't be afraid to do that in any form. And we'll talk a little bit about that here shortly. Secret 3, which again is very much a part of Secret 2. They want the leader to have a plan of action, and they want to understand what role they play. And the key to all of this is collaboration. In order to get your people to buy into you and to be inspired by you, they want to be a part of the process. If you're not allowing people to be part of the process and listening to what they have to say and allowing them a voice to express how they feel and what they see out there and how they're going to be able to accomplish those goals, they're going to check out, and they're going to be, they're not going to be engaged, and results are going to come slow. So collaboration, working together on how to accomplish goals, is a key to all of this. Number 4. So number 4 is connecting with your employees in a way that you aren't generally thinking about, and trying to make them feel special. It's just part of being a leader. I mean, people leave their jobs because their boss, they don't like their boss. And it's not about being their best friend either, because I want to make that clear as we talk about a few ideas here. It's much more about authenticity, which we mentioned, and it's about connection and truly caring about the people that you work with. One of the things that's always helped me in my career, even as a senior CEO level position, was to go in and get to know people, and which I always felt was important to do first. So I would spend a lot of time, get to know people, and then after that, it was a lot easier to be able to implement ideas and thoughts, and more importantly, was to be able to get information. Because if people feel that you're part of a dog and pony show that's coming in to see, only times when they're at their best, you're not going to learn enough about what's going on in your business. You want honesty, you want trust, and you want people to come to you and talk to you about what is actually going on so you can help. I never went in to busting people's what. I went in there with the idea that if there's issues, if there's problems, if there's things, I can help. Let me help out. So getting to know your people on a personal level is extremely important. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't mean you're best friends. Okay. You don't have to be socially hanging out all the time, but get to know your people. And for me, it was like, whether it was individually or as a group, we all went out and had lunch or something together. You get away from the office, or even you can bring lunch in. Breaking bread, I'm telling you, there isn't a better way to get to know somebody when food's involved. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about some things we can do to help make that connection, which of course will ensure that there's a little bit more buy-in. All right, talk to you in a minute.